Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 10 tips that I have to get yourself back into reading. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I'm going to be talking about my experience getting back into reading after taking such a long break from this hobby. I used to be an avid reader as a kid, and I stopped reading in high school and college. I only got back into reading when the pandemic hit because I suddenly had so much time to get back into this hobby. Now, I know that could be the case for a lot of people, or maybe it's something that you've been thinking about getting back into, but you're kind of having a hard time. So, if that's the case for you, this video will hopefully help you get some tips to get back into reading. The first tip that I have is to reread old favorites. So for some of you, that could mean rereading old books from childhood, or it could even be rereading novels that you read in middle school or high school. If you grew up during the times of like Twilight, Divergent, The Hunger Games, maybe that means rereading one of those old favorite series that you really loved back then. I find that rereading an old favorite is a great way to get me out of a reading slump. I already know that I love these stories, and sometimes I crave hearing them again or experiencing them again. If that's something you're interested in, you can pick up one of your old books or go to the library and find some of your old favorites. The second tip that I have is find different ways to read. This could mean reading in different formats, such as maybe reading physical books is boring to you or you don't have time for it, so you can get into audiobooks. I find audiobooks to be a great way to pick up a book when you're super busy. Also, picking up an ebook is a great way to, read at night. Maybe you don't have the best lighting, or it's an easy way to pick up a book on the go. Let's say you're going somewhere and you don't have a physical book with you. There are so many book options on your phone, whether it's an audiobook or an ebook. This is also a great tip if you find it hard to find the time to read, whether you're a busy working adult or you have children to take care of, or you're just constantly on the go. Finding different formats of reading is very helpful. You could, listen to audiobooks while you're doing chores around the house or while you're driving on the way to work, or you could pick up an ebook and read that right before bed or while you're at a doctor's appointment. You don't have to always carry a book around with you, and that's one of the beautiful things is you have so many options of books in your pocket just by having your phone. The third tip that I have is squeeze reading into your relaxed time. So this kind of ties back into the first tip. If you have a hard time finding the time to read, usually most people find the time to relax in some shape or form, whether that is watching a TV show or watching a movie, or if that is, listening to music, relaxing in the tub, taking a few minutes longer in bed. So squeezing reading into those times instead of doing those other things is a great way to put it back into your schedule. For example, instead of binging that new series on Netflix, you can binge a book series. Or instead of listening to music while you're driving or in the shower, you can listen to an audiobook. Instead of scrolling through your phone for that extra 30 minutes in the morning, you can read a book for those 30 minutes. So it's just finding those specific times and prioritizing reading over your other forms of relaxation. And I'm not saying all the time, just subtracting some of those times. You know, you don't have to completely stop watching TV shows and just read all the time. You can just slowly work it in. And having a good balance of relaxing time is a perfect way to, diversify your relaxation. I find integrating reading into my life to be one of the best things that I ever did. The next tip I have for you is to open social media specifically for reading. Now, this could mean opening another Instagram account, which is what I did, and curate your feed specifically around books and around reading. So I'll follow a bunch of authors and book clubs and book Instagrammers or booktubers, and I'll see new announcements on new releases that are coming out. I'll see other people's reviews of books. I'll see beautiful pictures of people reading or people's bookshelves or different libraries around the world. I love seeing those images, and it makes me excited to get back into whatever book I'm currently reading, or it gets me excited to reorganize my bookshelves, or it makes me anticipate the next book release that I want to get. So that doesn't have to just be Instagram. You could get into book Twitter or follow or subscribe to certain accounts on YouTube that are focused on reading. There's so many different book spaces out there in social media. And if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I definitely highly recommend it. The next tip I have for you is to ask friends or family what they're reading. When I first started getting back into reading, I didn't think that I knew that many people who were readers until I started just asking. I would ask family members or friends if they'd read any good books recently, or if their what's their favorite book, or what did they used to read back in high school or back when they were a kid. And it would open up these new conversations that I never thought to have with the people that I care about. And for some of them, that got them back into reading as well. Just starting up that conversation brings back the interest. And when you have a lot more people around you who are interested in what you're interested in, it'll keep you motivated to keep that up, make you more excited to finish a book and talk to somebody about it. The next tip I have is watch shows or movies based on books. Now, you may have heard the phrase by another reader in your life that, oh, that movie was not as good as the book, or that TV show did not follow the book. I know I've been guilty of saying that a few times, but this tip is definitely really helpful if you're potentially thinking of getting into reading. You know, a lot more people probably watch TV shows and movies than read the books, but sometimes dipping your toes into that story via the adaptation is a great way to get yourself interested in picking up the book. For example, if you really enjoy the Game of Thrones series, you can pick up the books next. Or if there's a new movie coming out and you heard that it was based on a book and you really enjoyed that movie, you may enjoy the book too, or you may enjoy the book even more. I find that engaging in the adaptation of a book is a great way to start off. The next tip that I have for you is just get a stack of books to get started. So, when I say a stack of books, I mean if you're thinking of getting back into reading and you don't know where to start, just go to your local library and pick up 3 books. I find that when some people say they want to get back into reading and they start with just one book, that book doesn't work for them, or they get bored and they put that book down and they suddenly say, oh, reading is not for me. I guess that means I shouldn't read anymore because this book didn't work for me. And I find that so sad, because that's if one book discourages you from getting back into reading, there are so many more others out there. Sometimes people try and trudge through it, they finish the book, and then they just go into a big reading slump because that book wasn't what they're interested in. Versus if you have a stack of 3 books, if one book, you read a few chapters and you're not interested in it, then you can just put that book down and you have 2 other books that you can read next. Giving yourself that option of having different genres, different lengths of books, different reading formats, whether you have like 2 novels and a graphic novel, or you have a couple mangas on the side to get you interested in to continue reading. I find that that really works for me. I never read just one book at a time. I usually have 2, 3, or 4 books going at the same time, and I pick up one based on what I'm interested in that moment. This also goes the other way, because you don't want to go too far and you're just starting to get into reading and you go to the bookstore and you buy like 15 books, because sometimes that can be too overwhelming and you feel like you wasted your money picking up all these books that you're not interested in. Like, say you love the Game of Thrones series and you go and you buy the whole series and you realize you love the TV show, but maybe the book isn't for you. And then you feel like you wasted money, or, it's just too much all at once. So I definitely feel like starting with a sizable stack, 3 to 5, is a great place to start. Oh, on another note, if you can get the first and second book, that way if you finish one book and you really loved it, you have the second book already ready to go. All right, so the next tip that I have is find apps for reading on your phone or your tablet. So, this kind of ties into the tip that I said earlier about finding different ways to read, but more specifically regarding apps, there are so many reading apps out there, whether it's Audible or Scribd or Libby or the Kindle app, or even just the Apple Books app. There's so many apps out there that you can download and have readily available on your phone to pick up whenever you have a free moment. I really enjoy having my audiobook already ready. So for example, if I'm doing the dishes, I can really quickly just play an audiobook rather than listening to music. Or, if I'm waiting at a doctor's appointment, I can just take out my phone and open an ebook and just start scrolling through that rather than scrolling through social media. So that's a great way to make sure you find time, and also having it like right there on the front of your phone, easily accessible, will make it so much easier for you to get to reading. All right, the next tip I have is start a reading journal, a planner, or even just a notepad. So, for me personally, when I got back into reading, I started a reading planner slash journal where I would keep track of the books that I was reading. I'd, write down some notes, write down my reviews, my ratings. I make lists of books that I want to look into or books that I want to purchase or get from the library. And that really kept me interested because I'm a big planner. I love planning and journaling. So this was a very easy way for me to add reading into more of my daily life and my hobbies. For you, if that's not your thing, you can even just, add a notes app on your phone and put down a list of books you're interested in, or use the notes app to take notes of your favorite quotes in a book you're reading, or even just add pictures, or so many different things. There's so many ways for you to be a more engaged reader, and this is just one way to become more engaged while you're reading. Taking notes, looking at quotes, looking at pictures, writing your thoughts down. And my last tip to get you back into reading is to read what you're interested in. Now, this might seem like a very obvious duh answer and tip, but what I actually mean is, let me explain. Some people want to get back into reading because they saw this great book on TikTok, or they heard somebody rave about this book on YouTube and they think, okay, I'm going to read that because this person loved it. I must love it too. Or they get back into reading and think, oh, I should probably try and reread or read that book that I never finished in high school, or I should read something worthwhile like a classic, or something some literary fiction or some big sci-fi fantasy novel, and they go in guns blazing, ready to love their reading experience. Now, in some cases that may work, but what if you're not interested in classics and literary novels and books that you didn't finish before in the past, or books recommended by other people? Everybody has their own personal taste, and I feel like your biggest goal shouldn't be to read that book that's recommended by so many people. It should be reading a book that you're genuinely interested in, not what you think you should be reading. Sometimes reading recommendations is a good start, but I always tell people, if you really want to get into reading, you should really try and spend time looking at what you're interested in. This could mean looking at certain movies that you love and finding books that are recommended to you by people who love those movies. That's a great indicator of where you should start about the kinds of stories that you're into. If you like, scary movies, maybe you should get into thrillers and horror movies. If you enjoy romantic TV series, then maybe you should pick up a romance. There's so many options out there, and you shouldn't limit yourself to just what other people like or what you think you should be reading. I definitely recommend doing the research to find what you are interested in and read those books. And that'll open the doors to so many other books and options and series that you could get into, and then it'll take off from there. And that's it, guys. Those are all 10 tips that I have for you to get back into reading. Let me know if you try any of these tips out, or even add more tips below for others to use to get back into reading. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.